Hey everyone, my name is Kevin. I'm doing my computer ethics presentation centered around the ethical question: is the NSA operating in such a way as a security agency to protect its citizens? I will argue that against their practices, which do not ultimately protect its citizens. In fact, it is against your Fourth Amendment rights, and also it does not guarantee safety. It doesn't guarantee the prevention of future attacks, and it also becomes a slippery slope for more control issues. So I will give a little background on the NSA, on the various people, the various programs there. I'll give reasons for my argument, and then I'll wrap everything up in a summary and conclusion. So the background, I'll talk about NSA, I'll talk about their program StellarWind, PRISM, and X-Keystroke, talk about FISA and the FISA court system. I'll also talk about a couple of people, William Binney, Mark Klein, and Edward Snowden, that that come out with information that we now know as to be facts about how the NSA was operating. So the NSA, and this comes from their website, nsa.gov, the National Security Agency, the Central Security Service, is a key member of the intelligence community and by its very nature requires a high degree of confidentiality. The agency collects, processes, and disseminates intelligence information from foreign electric signals from national foreign intelligence and counterintelligence purposes to support military operations. They are tasked with preventing foreign adversaries from gaining access to classified national security information. So you'll notice the theme of their own description is that this is about foreign things, foreign entities. That's how they're going to protect its citizens. So they're regulated by the U.S. Constitution, and this again is on nsa.gov in their own words. They have a lot of oversight external, such as the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, the President's Intelligence Oversight Board, Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, Department of Justice, Office of the Director of National Intelligence, Department of Justice. Also, they have internal oversight, such as the Office of the Inspector General, Office of the General Counsel, Office of Compliance, and beyond that, each employee must know, understand, obey to the fullest the laws of the nation. They receive very specific training advising them to their responsibility to protect the privacy of U.S. citizens. So FISA is the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which establishes procedures for the physical and electronic surveillance and collection of foreign intelligence information between foreign powers and agents of foreign powers. Again, everything having to do with foreign information. The FISA court was established under FISA, which oversees requests for surveillance warrants against foreign spies operating within the U.S. So this is the first time we're seeing the ability for the NSA to get information on something domestic. And this again has to deal with foreign spies operating on U.S. soil. StellarWind was a codename given to a warrantless surveillance program which began under President Bush and extended under President Obama. The scope was to data mine large databases of the communications of American citizens. This includes email, telephone, financial transactions, and internet activity. They obtained information from the U.S. Treasury as well. PRISM is another program that is used by the NSA, and its capability is to collect data directly from servers of major American tech companies. So these companies include companies like Microsoft, Google, Apple, Facebook, Yahoo, Skype, list goes on and on. This program is capable of extracting audio, video, photographs, email, documents, and connection logs that will then enable analysts to track a person's movements over time. Right? This was enabled by the FISA Amendment Act of 2008. And that act specifically authorizes intelligence agencies to monitor the phone, email, and other communications of U.S. citizens for up to a week without obtaining a warrant when one of the parties is outside the U.S. So we've gone from the NSA describing themselves that they're working purely foreign, but this amendment allows for them to get information specifically on U.S. citizens without a warrant whenever these parties are outside of the U.S. Another program is X-Keyscore, which serves as a user interface for the analyst, and it's essentially like a Google search for analysts. They can type in selectors that will then be used to like look at Prism or look at these databases and give back information that they've requested. And again, this is there's no prior authorization needed. I mean, it's as simple as just typing in what they want to look for, as far as like email addresses, phone numbers, people's names, IP addresses, keywords. It will report back anything, and so it retrieves everything from the databases. It can also look at anything going on right now. So if there was a telephone number, it could pull up that phone right this minute and be able to turn on the mic, turn on the video, and listen in real time. And then it also has the capability of, since you've chosen those selectors, that analyst could be alerted in the future anytime there's any kind of activity with that information. So 3 individuals become important for sharing the information that the NSA was using. William Binney, he was a crypto mathematician for the NSA pre 9/11, and post 9/11 he ended up resigning in October because he was not agreeing with how the NSA started to essentially spy on U.S. citizens. So in that network, he proposed setting up communication intercepts on the coast where the fiber optic cables come in from other countries, and grabbing that information there. And this would go directly with NSA's own description of grabbing foreign communications. But instead, we'll learn that NSA didn't want to do that. They wanted to get more information. They wanted to get information on U.S. citizens directly from telecom companies and whatnot. Mark Klein came about in 2006. He came forward. He's a communications technician for AT&T, or was one. He basically revealed that the NSA was tapping directly into an AT&T's network in San Francisco. They were physically in the building. That tapping would allow the NSA to monitor, capture, and process American telecommunications. Edward Snowden was another whistleblower that came forward in 2013. The U.S. House Permanent Select Committee of Intelligence estimates that the information that he leaked was about 1.5 million files. So this is where a lot of the information that we're going to realize how the NSA was operating essentially from post 9/11, right? Post 9/11 to 2013, 2015, and kind of understand how a security agency tasked with protecting U.S. citizens is in fact grabbing as much possible information as they can and doing what they want with it. So my arguments are, even with all this information, with all this mass amounts of information that they're able to gather, that they're able to store and retrieve on a moment's notice, there becomes a great temptation to look at it. So SIGINT, which is signals intelligence, is what the NSA does, right? Signals intelligence. within the analyst group that was able to operate these programs, love int spike became a term, and it was essentially these analysts that were spying on ex-lovers, ex-girlfriends, ex-boyfriends. So at the analyst level, there was abuses of power, right? You see bigger abuses of power with like President Nixon and Watergate. He used the NSA to gather intelligence on his political opponents. Also, NSA back in the 60s and 70s was gathering intelligence on like Martin Luther King Jr. and also people protesting the Vietnam War. So this desire for more information, this desire for more power, it leads to that temptation of getting more and more and more, and inevitably leads to less and less rights for the people. So even with all this information, the NSA can't even guarantee perfect security. Bad things will still happen. Not every attack is going to be able to be stopped. So we can already see that they have they're going against our Fourth Amendment rights for illegal search and seizure and getting information on U.S. citizens. But even with all that information, attacks are still going on, and I'll go over a couple here in a moment. So hypothetically, say the people as a whole gave up their rights to privacy, right? So now the NSA or government agencies can have every bit of information they want of what's going on currently. Are they going to be able to stop future attacks? Are they going to be able to are they going to be able to stop 100%? Is there going to be just a certain amount of things that are always going to get through? And even with this hypothetical idea of, okay, we're going to allow them full access to our privacy in exchange for national security, in exchange for that feeling that we're not going to be attacked and the prevention of those attacks. Does it stop at just the information that they've already kind of grabbed, telecommunications, emails, and whatnot, the things that have already existed, or is it going to become more of a, okay, well, thanks for giving us that information, but now we want to know where you're going to go. So you're going to have to tell us where you're going and what you're going to be up to, and that way we can better protect you. Is there ever going to be a time where they have all the information? Is that even possible, right? So since the people do not just give this information freely, what they're doing is against the Fourth Amendment. And on top of that information grabbing and whatnot, this entity is proved to even lie to the public and to Congress about their operations. So in a couple of different times, let's see, in 2012, the NSA director, he was asked under oath by Congress if the NSA is routinely intercepting American citizens' phones, calls, emails, texts, bank records, and Google searches. He answers no to everything. He was then asked, well, what would be required for that to happen? And his response was, well, that's actually done by the FBI. The FBI does searches on U.S. citizens, and with that, it requires a court order. That happened in 2012. The leaked documents came in 2013, so we know he was lying. In early 2013, so in March of 2013, the Director of National Security tells the U.S. Senate Committee on Intelligence that the NSA does not wittingly collect data on millions or hundred millions of Americans. So he's essentially saying, well, we're not trying to collect information, but we have it, maybe, right? So after 2013, so June 2013, that's when Snowden came forward and released leaked all those documents to several different journalists, who then started releasing them in different news stories. In 2013, there was a FISA court order that was released on these documents, which granted unlimited authority to the NSA to collect records from Verizon within and outside of the U.S. So this order compels Verizon to produce to the NSA electronic copies of all call detail records created by Verizon for communication between the United States and abroad and wholly within the United States, including telephone calls. This order also included a gag order in which the Verizon was not allowed to tell the customers about it. So they had to do it, right? And they weren't allowed to say anything. Why do they have to operate under that secrecy? I mean, is it always going to be for national security? Why do you need that much information? That just proves this there's never enough information. There's always going to be more things that they're going to want, right? If they're going to protect you, they need more and more and more and more information. I mean, how much information can you give before you just have no freedoms at all? And all this information is supposed to be used for, preventing attacks. So in this time frame that we know that these things happen, so post 9/11 to 2013. So in December of 2001, anthrax killed 5 people across the U.S. In 2002, sniper attacks killed 10 in Maryland, Virginia, and D.C. 2009, shootings killed 13, wounding 29 in Fort Hood. In 2009 again, a bomb failed to detonate but was on an airplane going from the Netherlands to Detroit. Why wasn't that actually thwarted? I mean, the bomb just failed to go off. In 2010, same kind of thing. A bomb was lit but failed to go off in Times Square. 2012, a Wisconsin Sikh temple shooting killed 6, injured 3. And then in 2013, the Boston Marathon bombing killed 3 and injured 180. So this is a time where we know the NSA had information. We know they had all this information they could search through and analyze, and they were tasked with stopping attacks from happening, but yet attacks still come through. So how much more information should they have had to even stop those? And is that just an unnecessary rabbit hole? Because at the end of the day, is it possible to even stop 100% of attacks? Is that just kind of an inevitable situation we live in? After these documents were leaked, the NSA came out in testimony and suggested that there were several attacks and whatnot that were actually thwarted because of the information that they gathered. But Senator Udall and Senator Whitten, in a joint testimony, basically said that you suggest that the NSA's bulk records help thwart dozens of attacks, but all the plots that are mentioned appear to have been identified using other collection methods. So you're saying that you're using this information to actually to stop attacks, but in reality, it looks like different methods were used anyway. So why do you need this information to begin with? In 2014, Yahoo reported that the U.S. government threatened to impose a $250,000 fine daily if Yahoo didn't hand over user data. as part of the NSA's PRISM program. So it's that overreaching. It's that we just need more and more and more and more information. I mean, is there a law of diminishing returns here? The more information you get, the less the less likely you're going to prevent an attack in the future anyway. I mean, is there such thing as perfect information to stop every attack? So I think this becomes less about NSA or any kind of government agency trying to protect its citizens, and more about the state's power to gain more power, and versus the people's ability to oppose this power. We live in a democracy, so not in a totalitarian system. So in this kind of system, like, is there an expectation of being watched? I mean, if you're expected to give up this information, and you're expected for being watched, you would imagine that you're going to limit the things that you do anyway, just because of that feeling of being always watched no matter what. So in summary, it is against the Fourth Amendment. The ability for abuse is too high, from an analyst level all the way up to the presidential level. There are other means of which the agency could operate as they've suggested. They say that they're operating for foreign communications only, and Benny laid out a method of grabbing that, intercepting that information from the fiber optic cables coming in on the coast, but instead chose to be more invasive. So there's consistent lying to the people in Congress. It doesn't actually prevent all attacks, as you've heard. Attacks still come through. So, and those are just the things that we've heard about. What about the things that we haven't heard about? What about the things that haven't been leaked? What other things are being done? As a side note, looking at the NSA's website, they do have a note on there that if you feel like you're being watched by the government, or if you feel like the government might have records on you, you actually have the right, Freedom of Information Act and the Privacy Act, that gives you the right to request that information from those agencies to see what information they have. But rest assured that since the NSA is authorized by law to collect only foreign intelligence information, they would not ordinarily expect to find intelligence information about U.S. persons. Thank you.